Welcome to hour number two of the Art Lewis Show. Nice to have you with us this hour. We spend it with State Representative Amos O'Neill. Representative O'Neill's in studio. Good morning.
Good morning, my friend. How are you this morning?
Good to see you, Amos. Very good.
Thank you.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't start out with the question, which I know you're going to get. How's the budget doing? You got 2 days.
Yes. I know my colleagues and the principal, they have been working all weekend. That I know because I tried to reach out to a few of them, and they text back, say, in budget negotiation, get back with you shortly. And so I know that's happening. All intents and purposes, all of us, I believe, want to get that budget out on time. Last year, as you know what happened, but no one wins when that happens, Art. And so I think the attitude now in the last few weeks has been, we got to get it done.
Got to believe you've heard from every school superintendent there is
Yes.
to hear from.
Actually, we have. Actually, I got an email text from our superintendent, ISD, Dr. Collier, and said, hey, just letting you know, Rep. O'Neill, this is coming down the pipes. I said, bring it on, because all of us need to hear that and, understand how important it is to get those budgets out, particularly for schools as they plan for the year and staffing and planning, et cetera. It's hard to do that when you don't know what's in there for you.
Well, I remember not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, there was agreement from the Republicans, Democrats, and governor to sit down and get it done.
Yes.
How far away is it?
Well, I think we're very close. Just last week, just in session last week, just the rhetoric and the tenor is around on both sides of the aisle is, we got to get this done. I think even Speaker Hall has made several, conjectures to, publicly that, hey, we got some folks together. We're going to get the job done. So, I take that, as I heard it and I believe it, because, as so many people are depending on us to get this done and get it done right. And so.
What, as you see it, what were the main areas of contention?
Well, I know the speaker brought up property tax in several comments. I don't think that's going to fly this time. I think that's been moved off the table from just my awareness. Making sure that the budget's smaller. Obviously, we don't have as much money as we had before. So we're about $1 billion, from our general fund budget short. So that means there'll be a lot of adjustments. I think most of us are looking at how can we best serve as many people as possible in the state of Michigan. People are, stretching a dollar as far as they can go, from food to gas and just, paying the bills. And so, you got healthcare is a major issue, as you know. Prevention is better than a pound of cure. And so if we can keep people on the front end of getting, basic primary care versus going to the emergency rooms in our hospitals, then that's a big savings for us as well. And so those are the kind of attitudes that I know I've been in rooms talking about. We all have what we call LDSIs, legislative directed spending requests. And so, not being selfish, many of us have made the decision that how can we get the best bang for our bucks for the most people in Michigan? And so that may be meaning to sacrifice saying, well, I got this project here in Saginaw, or got this project for the Great Lakes Bay region, and let's forego that for the purposes of making sure we can touch as many people as possible with the resources we have available.
And you said you're about $1 billion short, and yet it's an $80 billion budget, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a big budget. So I think in the years past, the conversation has been, we spent $86 billion and
that was when you had federal money coming.
Yes, exactly. And so that's a good point. And so now, a lot of our, appropriations committees have been charged with, trying to cut and shave dollars where you could. And so, for example, I'll look at the largest budget we have is the Department of Health and Human Service budget. And as you know, the director has made a decision to move on, obviously, with the change of of the guard. That happens pretty natural. But for me, I'm thinking in my mind, this is a good time. And let me go back. Okay, so I'm a Democrat, and I'm a pretty conservative thinking person in terms of stretching a dollar. So I said to one of my colleagues, I said, hey, this is a really good time to go into, for example, look at sort of our local mental health programs across the state, because, we're short beds and, we always talk about treatment services. We get calls all the times about that, access. This is a good time to go in and see what's working, what's not working. And he said, the eyes perked up. I said, oh, that's a great idea. And it was pretty surprised to hear that come from me. But I said, hey, we're responsible for the state money. I'm on appropriations. And so, I don't want wasteful spending at all. And so I think I'm going to push that forward this week to, even try to expand that call to try to go through some of those departments, particularly with our community mental health services and, and see where the money's going and see where we can shave a few dollars and really utilize the funds in a more robust way.
Utilizing them in a more robust way, I understand. Because it seems to me mental health care has taken it on the shorts.
Yes.
We haven't really put the kind of money into it that it needed.
Yes.
And when all the hospitals closed down and all the beds went away,
yeah,
you talk to like Judge McGraw in Saginaw, he gets a case in front of him and he has no place to put someone who needs
right
a psych bed.
Exactly. Well, you think about it, just for me, just practical thinking, a lot of organizations are top heavy. And we've seen that in throughout the process of oversight committees, narrowing down some of the budgets. And that's a real thing. So do you let that go on in perpetuity, or do you say, hey, let's stop the bleeding here. We can get away with, eliminating 5 top heavy positions when there are other people who are doing those jobs, but you just got this extra oversight that you don't need. That's kind of where I'm thinking. And so
well, that's a lesson the auto industry learned. They had layer upon layer upon layer of management.
Yeah.
Costing them a lot of money.
Right.
So, all right, we're going to take a break. We are talking to State Rep Amos O'Neill. Budget time is here. Everybody's trying to get it done by the 1st of July, which just happens to be this Wednesday. Short
yes.
time. We'll be back with more.
We're proud to make
All right, back with you. In studio with me, Amos O'Neill, State Representative O'Neill. Just one more question on the budget. Are we going to have one by tomorrow?
I believe with all my heart we are.
It seems that everybody's pulling in the same direction.
Everybody's pulling the same direction, and that's important. So this is the 29th, and July 1 is the deadline. So we've got 1 day, really. Well, if you want to say 2 days, but yeah, it's got to be done no later than July 1. So
and they're close on most everything.
They're close on most everything. I'm told the framework is there. There's some agreements lined up. I think they're just kind of working through some of the small, I wouldn't say small, but just some of the finite appropriation committee ask and budgetary requests and see if there's some compromise there. But we had actually a meeting set for today, was called canceled, and I take that as another sign that, okay, we need every hand on deck in those conversations that need to be, and so we'll forego that meeting today, and probably tomorrow we'll get some more information through our caucus meetings.
And once it makes it through the agreement stage with the legislature, how long before a governor gets it to sign it?
Well, once it makes it through those agreements, then we have to vote it out.
Right.
Vote it out of the House, then send it to the Senate. Senate votes it out. So,
do we assume that's normalized? In other words, once there's an agreement amongst all parties,
yes,
you don't anticipate any problems in the vote.
No. Once there's an agreement, we call that the three-legged stool. the House, Senate, and the budget office, which is the governor's office. Once those agreements are made with the three-legged stool, you can almost, take it to the bank in terms of, we're going to move forward. So hopefully we hear that news tomorrow when we get to Lansing. I know it's going to be a lot of moving parts, and the deadlines are right on our heels, and so there's an urgency for all of us to get this done. As I said, the leader spoke and the speaker spoke about, we want to make it on July 1 deadline. And so for him to say that several times, I think that's a good signal.
The biggest thing we hear about mostly is the schools.
Yes, definitely.
Because they have to do their planning.
Yes.
Well, we haven't heard much about this time in terms of negotiation, or, for example, roads.
Yes.
Taken care of in the last budget?
Yes, and I believe some road funding is going to be a continual budgetary allocation, long term.
So stay the same.
Yes. So, for example, got state trunk lines, and then our county, our county road. Yes, they received actually in the last budget, we got about over $1 million for them to do some work in our region, and so, those are the kind of things that are impactful for a large spot. And you're talking about a community, Saginaw County is pretty nice size. So the road commission having the resources they have would also augment that. We still got to come up with a better formula for general funding for roads. Sales tax has been the catch me all, but just the whole formula of road funding has not been in attention, on the radar screen for a long time. And now since we've done it, we've allocated $2 to $3 billion. That's significant. And so it has to be a continual. It's like you invest in your stocks and your bonds. You put a little away each time, and over time you have revenue to do other things later.
So if we carry that thought through to other infrastructure.
Yes.
A lot of the piping in this state is very old.
Yes.
Water.
Yes.
And others.
Yes.
Any money going toward that stuff?
Well, if you see a lot of the construction going around town on State Street and different areas, not only they're doing underground infrastructure, but they're upgrading and preparing. So it's taking a long time. People say, why is it taking them so long?
So it was all, my understanding is that delays on State Street were all due to utilities.
Yes.
And infrastructure.
Yes. Yep. And so, in some parts of our county, you have a lot of underground, infrastructure. You don't see power lines in certain areas. Everything's underground. And so I think moving forward, modernizing our area, you'll see a lot more of that. That costs money. And so, if you're talking about, some of the talks about, cutting taxes here and cutting taxes there, well, you get what you pay for. And then shifting a little bit, the city agreed to put the one version of, I think it's one version of the tax cap on the November ballot. And
you had submitted one to the legislature last year.
We did, and we saw it wasn't moving. And so from there we pivoted and came back to the community and said, hey, this is what's going on. And I don't think my Senator Horn, who was very instrumental in helping us do this, we had a town hall in the community, and we just shared everything we could. And we tried to express in most layman terms as possible in terms of the impact of our community from that 1979 dollar cap. So we got major developments lined up, but if this tax cap stays in place, then the city captures nothing over $3.8 million. So think about that. This is 1979 when this happened.
Yep.
Just think if you were making 1979 dollars,
and
the cost of living is, And so here's another thing you got to think about talking to business folks. This was just the other day, last week. He said, well, he was talking about this and other things. He said, well, if I'm a business, developer, I will look at your community and say, like, heck no, I'm not coming there. Why is that? Because you're not even invested in your own self. And this guy told me this, and I said, wow, I'll have to keep that in mind and use that. But that's true. You know, businesses are looking at communities that are making investments in themselves in terms of them saying, oh, this is attractive for us. We've made those investments in the county, you know, Corning, Hemlock, you got the, Dow, just in general, that region. But when communities like Saginaw or Bay City and Midland, you think about the development we're talking about now with the Diamond Project and the CMU Medical School, Saginaw Valley, that's going to be transformational for the whole riverfront.
Yeah.
You know, look at Bay City, beautiful riverfront, hotels and restaurants.
It's going to look a little different than envisioned, but that's all right.
That's
because
okay.
They're still doing it. It's just a question of who's where.
Right. Business attracts business.
Yeah.
Investments attract investments. And the same is true on the opposite. Lack of investment, well, I wouldn't say attract, but it really repels that investment. So
all of this talk about the tax cap,
sure.
Who's the good news, bad news, all rolled into one person?
Who's that?
Tim Morales.
Good news,
Because
bad
he's
news.
managed to keep a decent budget,
Yes.
and that's the good news and the bad news when you go after reducing that tax cap.
But to our credit, and I said this, and I think I said this in our town hall, had a great group of folks there, a diverse group. I said, knock on wood, Saginaw is one of only a few cities that avoided receivership. And it was all under the leadership of Mr. Morales.
Yeah.
He was there all the time. And so that says a lot about Saginaw in terms of our fiscal responsibility, in terms of the city budget. And I was there I was there from 2003. Actually, he came when I got elected in 2003. He told me that. I said, I didn't know. And to 2016. So Tim Morales, kudos to him. Thank him for his leadership and his insight and foresight. And that says a lot about, being fiscally responsible. You got somebody that you can trust, who's been there, who understands the region. And I think that's important as well.
And he's something else. He's a quiet leader.
Very quiet.
Doesn't seek the spotlight
At all.
at all.
No.
And I'm just, he's one of those impressive people
No,
you come across in your life.
No, we got some good people in Saginaw area.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we do.
Well,
and
it's one of the things I love about it is
we
people.
do. We got the best, the regional collaboration team, I think, in the state. We talk about that a lot, man. And it's true. And I said it to, I think I was talking to Sam a few days ago, and I said, hey, we got one of the best. He's, yeah. I was complimenting him as well. You got Dick Garber, you got Herb Spence. You got so many people who have invested their entire career and family, financial wherewithal to say, I'm staking my stakes in this region, and I'm staying. And so that's a big deal for me, as being a legislator, and I told Sam, I said, hey, it's a no-brainer for me when I make decisions, because I know what my leaders and my community folks need and want from us as legislators, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. And I said, we all know, and I said this to Sam, I said, hey, we all know it's unspoken. When there's a decision made for the region, we all better put that yes vote up there,
Well, it's been, I don't care what party you're a member of.
Yes.
When you watch not only the region but the state,
Yes.
when it comes to supporting Michigan, our representatives and senators in both parties
They line up.
all of a sudden line up.
Yeah. Now, Michigan is
And
seen.
that's what we need.
Yeah.
We put them there to do that.
No, we're a spotlight. Michigan. Everybody looks at Michigan. When I say everybody, actually a lot of other states look at Michigan. I know I get calls all the time. I was on a Zoom call the other day with some national folks, and they were talking about what Michigan's got to do. We got to do Michigan. And I'm saying, wow, our spotlight's always on Michigan. So that's a proud. And collectively, we all deserve credit collectively, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, because we all, as you said, we roll in the same way in terms of Michigan. And so people don't talk about that much, but I see it. I see it every day. I see it in the circles I'm in. I see it in the conversations when I talk to stakeholders, and it just feels great to have that experience.
Talking to State Representative Amos O'Neill. More coming up.
At the Arid Insurance.
Hi, we're back with you. And with us in studio, State Representative Amos O'Neill. And where are you in your terms now? How many terms has it been for you?
I'm in my third term.
Third term now, so next will be fourth.
Yes.
You get 6, right?
We have, with the term limits being changed, so you can do 12 years total before you combination, yeah. And so, I decided to stay in the House, and had I not, I would have lost 2 years. If I had jumped to the Senate, I would have lost 2 years. So, but I think, for me, it was better for me to stay where I was, and I got a good track record, good reputation. I got good committees. People respect me, and so I know where things are in Lansing now. So I think that's add values.
And that's, it's the thing I've always been against term limits for. You throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
You lose all that experience.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's always those who you wish you could get rid of. But
sure.
Yeah. The point is, for the most part, you don't want to get rid of that history.
Exactly. I mean, it takes years to learn the whole mechanism of Lansing. And when I first came on board, the lobbyists, there was a thing that they would say, well, if they didn't, have that good relationship or it was not productive, so, well, we'll just wait them out, and that's what they did. They would wait them out in terms of the 6 years, you're gone.
Yeah.
And so it takes that time to learn the operation, to gain respect, to know how to work budgets, to know how to negotiate budgets. You have to all learn the understanding, the value of partnering and being bipartisan, and that takes time, Art. And so
we never hear about that.
No, you don't hear
about it. All we hear
it.
about the dissension. Is all
No. Again, I keep saying this every time I'm on. I'm still the co-chair of the bipartisan caucus. Mark Tisdale chairs on the House side, and I'm on the House side. And our purpose is to build relationships. And we have an event planned coming up after the 4th of July. We're going to do something just to kind of get together. And last time we were here in Jake's at Paul's place, with several of us just talking and building relationships. They love Jake, so we'll get back to them too. But that's important, Art. Because all of us need somebody on the other side to move legislation. The majority of legislation that's moved is bipartisan. It's the Democrat and Republicans are on all legislation. Very rare. People may not know this. Very rare did you see legislation that's just a one party on it. Okay. So
and with the current setup in the House and the Democrats and the Senate, one side only isn't going to pass.
No. Shared government is, you talk about with power, you're in control and you're in control this time. People ask me, well, how do you feel about being in the minority? Well, I came in the minority when I first came in. It did very well. I think we brought back over $67 million back to this region when I was in my first term. They said, wow, how'd you do that? Well, I had a relationship with Senator Horn. He was in the Senate and, and built relationships with others. My experience in city council and county commission, I learned and I met a lot of people in Lansing in those areas, in those roles. And so I used them. And, and so time has its value. And, information of learning the landscape of any organization, institution that you're involved in adds value to, the folks you're representing.
As long as you're doing your homework.
As long as you're doing your homework, yes.
Yeah, that's the key.
That's the key. Yeah, just can't fly by the seat of your pants. You gotta put the time in. And that's something I always believe in as a young person aspiring to be in a political arena. I believe in always bloom where you plant it, meaning don't be so hasty to move quickly, because before you learn the law of the land, learn it. That's my philosophy. That's why. I just learned to be patient, methodical, not reactionary.
Well, the reality is if you don't do it that way, you don't get anything
exactly.
done.
So
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. Take a break and be back. State Representative Amos O'Neill, our guest. We will return.
Gotta go.
All right, we're back with you. Talking to State Representative Amos O'Neill. So, Amos, let me ask you this. You came out of the corporate world and you moved into politics. Were there any surprises when you got in politics that made you maybe think twice?
Wow, that's a good question. Never had that question asked of me. Were there any surprises? Well, you deal with people and everything. What I saw a lot was it was an urgency when I got in the political arena. It's like everything that came to my door was like, and the person that brought it to me is like, I need it right now. And I said, wow, it takes time to do anything. I said, well, I have to learn to communicate effectively to help folks understand that, well, this is going to take a little time. I need you to be patient. Had to stay in touch with them more frequently. And so they understood that. But that was a big shift for me. Like, okay, I can't do it like that. I can't just like snap my fingers and make this go away or make this issue better. So just understanding that you have to be patient and communicate patience. And there's a way to do that too. You can pretty much tell if a person's listening to you and taking in what you're saying, the body language, the cues, etc. And so I've learned that over years to exhibit that, because people can tell when you're anxious. And we're always in a hurry, but you can't let people see you in a hurry. But you got to show, I don't know how to explain it. You gotta slow down to listen more. And I try to master that.
That's very astute, because during COVID, when I was broadcasting from home for 2.5 years, I got tired of interviewing people in little boxes on a TV screen.
Okay.
Because you don't have that ability to read them.
Yeah.
And to react to their reactions. We're sitting in a studio where you and I are looking at each other.
That's right.
We get to read each other.
Yeah.
We know when we say something that caught the other by surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's nothing like personal relationships.
That's the key. And unfortunately, our children, our young people, they're missing that art. And you see it in the phones, the tabs, everything. You're walking around. Most of our, I'm not going to get on soap. Yeah. I mean, technology is fine, but when we were growing up, you could remember 50, 60, almost 100 phone numbers off the top of your head.
It's true.
Am I right? Someone said, "Hey, can you give me Bob's number?" You'll say, "Wait a minute," and you'll think your computer, your brain would start rolling through and say, "Oh," and you would say it. And just the interpersonal communication skills.
I used to call that something.
What?
I used to call that my cerebral Rolodex.
Oh, there you go. No, that's true. We use our most powerful computer is our brain, and so we sort of relegated our brain power to just to have access to someone else to say this is that. You're not studying, not researching. It's a different model. But technology is on our doorsteps. But you got to use your brain.
So let me ask about that. What do you see as the state's position on data centers?
Well, you got two sides to every coin. And this one, we know data centers are coming. What's been happening even recently with legislation is how can we put safeguards around this data center movement? So like a lot of constituents say, well, the noise, the water utilization, the environmental impact, the cost of power, all those things are out there just flopping around like a fish out of water. Flop, 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 flop. We got to get that fish back in the water where they can smoothly, navigate. And people say, oh, I feel better now about this. The train's coming. It's here. Celine, obviously the governor's out there with a team of business folks. It's here. Talking about 5G, 6G, technology is here. And one thing I didn't know this until I was at Gavin Getz's place downtown, AT&T, talking to some of the execs about, civic engagement and stuff. And he said, Amos, did you know that this was a data center? I looked, paused, I said, I grew up in Saginaw as a kid, walking around, being amazed at this big old building AT&T. I said, no. He said, this is a data center. I said, wow, people don't realize that the AT&T building is a data center.
Not
the
to the
level
degree or scope of
right.
what we say data centers are today.
Right.
Because AI didn't exist.
Exactly.
But yeah,
it's a data
sure.
center. So it's coming. We just have to, put those safeguards around to try to protect the folks' environment. I'm on the Natural Resource Committee, DNR. I do a lot of hunting and fishing. I do a lot of environmental investments with National Association of Sportsmen Caucus I'm on. And so the environment issue is very important, not only for preserving the Great Lakes and our natural resources that Michigan is so known for, so you got to think about that too. And so all those factors included are a part of the discussion of, go fast, go slow on the data centers.
So let me ask you a question that Mike Avery would ask you if he were sitting here.
Okay.
Folks on the DNR, are they outdoorsmen? Are they hunters? Are they fishermen? Do they understand the needs of the outdoor community in the state of Michigan?
Yes, the majority of us are hunters, fishers, outdoor enthusiasts. Some of us are mad at DNR that are on it. I mean, they want to, I'm going to get you, so, it's just funny. I was actually with Mr. Avery at the Warriors for Walleyes in Linwood a couple weeks ago. Had a couple flags that, we distributed out to some veterans there. Great. And what came up was the commercial fishing laws and legislation that's coming, and the whole tent full of folks, probably 300 or 400 folks, they're like vehemently opposed to that. And I said, well, I'm on the right side of this, and I know we want to support our walleye and our sports fishermen, and also accommodate the commercial fishermen, but not give over just the total access to all the different areas to throw those nets to kind of deplete our perch, walleye, and our game fish. So.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing. That was a couple weeks ago with Mark Avery.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Well, as always, it's a pleasure.
My honor, always.
Thank you for
My
being
friend.
here.
Yes.
We'll do it again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
State Representative Amos O'Neill, we thank him for joining us this morning, and we'll take a break, tell you what's ahead on Focus.
Big insurance, big pharma.
W Morning Team Show. Weekdays 5:30 to 9 on WSGW.
All right, that'll do it for the Art Lewis Show for today. We'll be back tomorrow with lots more. Coming up next hour is Focus, and we will learn about our friends at New Finish. Jen and Kevin will be here. But all of that happens after the news. ABC News comes along first with The Nation and the World, and then Michael Purchase in the WSGW newsroom. He'll bring you up to date on the region and the state. I'm Art Lewis. Stick around. We'll talk to you right after the news next.
Broadcasting from the